I'd like to thank you for taking time and joining us this morning for the annual press briefing on the BVI London office. I'd like to welcome you to 2013. I would like to recognize the presence of my colleagues from Premier's office in the International Affairs Secretariat, Ms. Olivia Smith-Madura and Ms. Najan Christopher. Other members of that work with the London office may join us as we progress to the question and answer session. The London office represents the entire government of the British Virgin Islands in the United Kingdom and Europe. It is the BVI's only overseas mission or embassy, and as such, it works to represent all of the interests of the territory. This morning, I'd like to provide you with a perspective on international developments and activities that are of some consequence to the territory. We'd also like to share some of our activities for 2012, what the office has been doing in support of the government, and we will give you our perspective on 2013, and then share some of the plans we have for 2013, and then we'll take any questions that you may have. Each year when I visit the territory at this particular time, it is really to help the territory to understand what is happening externally that the London office can do, that the London office works with in order to assist the territory. We try to give a perspective on international activities. We also try to ensure that our plans are in concert with the various government departments and ministries. The London office, as I said before, only works on behalf of the government, department, and territories. So we make sure that our plans are in concert and represents the needs and requirements of the various departments of government before we proceed into the year. I would begin by saying that 2012 is probably one of the most significant years in international affairs for the territory. During 2012, two of the territory's most significant external relationships, that with the United Kingdom and that with the European Union, both undertook significant policy shifts that will alter the direction of the territory's development. And those policy shifts, more importantly, were shaped by the current global economic situation that the world finds itself in. I believe that when history takes a proper look at 2012, that many more people will agree with the ancient Mayans, and that the new political and economic landscape coming into force in 2013 will be a world apart from what we experienced in 2012. And as the BVI's overseas mission in UK and Europe, the London office's mission is to ensure that the territory receives the best advice possible as it tries to cope with these developments and try to weather the storms of what is an increasingly volatile global environment. Overall, in 2012, it was a very busy year for us as well. It was quite a significant year for the United Kingdom, being host to the London 2012 Olympics and celebrating Her Majesty's Diamond Jubilee. Two amazingly well-coordinated events that showed the great organization and the high standards that the UK has in the global community. We were able to work very closely with the with the Minister, the Premier, and other organizations in ensuring that BVI was fully represented in those two events. Let's just take a quick look at developments in the United Kingdom. In the UK, as I mentioned before, there's a clear and strong shift in policy of the UK towards the territories. All of you would be familiar with the White Paper, and those policies are clearly framed in the White Paper, which was implemented earlier this year. You also would be aware that the Minister for the Overseas Territories, Mark Simmons, visited the territory, first territory to be visited after his appointment, and he is actively on the political level implementing the policies of the White Paper. The Governor and the Foreign and Commonwealth Office are also administratively implementing the new policies of the White Paper. The paper simply illustrates the UK's desire for greater engagement with the overseas territories, and this is driven by the new coalition government led by the Conservative government, and certainly governance issues in Turks and Caicos and security concerns in Falkland Islands, and environmental concerns in general in the territories, particularly those in uninhabited territories, have all framed the policy of the White Paper. And this is explained in greater detail in the White Paper. If you haven't yet read the document, every person in the territory should read the UK White Paper. And you will also be aware that the Premier did attend the Joint Ministerial Council meeting in December to meet with the UK government, and further details on those meetings and future plans regarding the relationship with the UK will be shared with the Premier in due course, by the Premier in due course. There's also a clear shift in the European Union towards the BVI and the overseas territories. This is being framed in what is called a Overseas Association Decision, which is a piece of legislation that goes through the European Parliament that outline how the European Union will relate to its 26 British, French, Dutch, and Danish territories over the period of 2014 to 2020. Again, the shift in EU policy is being structured in the OAD and really also stresses a more mature relationship with the overseas territories, as does the UK White Paper. This relationship will also require greater diligence and management of the territory's affair as it interfaces with the European Union. The EU is realigning its relationship with the overseas territories after a decade of development cooperation. It is seeking to shift the emphasis in relation from aid to trade in an effort to graduate the territories receiving direct budget support and other forms of aid out of development assistance by 2020. And again, it's very important to note that the UK and the EU relationship are both stressing a stronger partnership with the territory based on a partnership agreement with mutual and equal responsibilities on both sides. The BVI is very positioned to play a role in the relationship with the EU as it becomes the chairman of the association that manages the relationship of the 26 territories. You would have met the Greenland Premier, who was in the territory earlier this year, who was the current chair of the of the Organization of Overseas Countries and Territories. You should also be aware, as I have mentioned on previous visits, that the European Development Fund, which is the program that provides assistance to the territories for development, will be coming into force this year with the Small to Medium Enterprise Program, which is being managed by the Ministry of Finance. Mrs. Smith-Maduro oversees that program, as well as a program called Territorial Strategies for Innovation, which is designed to stimulate growth and new business opportunities in the overseas countries and territories. And both of these programs come on stream this year, and the Ministry of Finance will be the focal point for those. The Commonwealth also is an area where there's great activity in terms of the territory's interests. You would have been aware that the Premier hosted meetings this year with the Commonwealth in seeking and gaining assistance from the Commonwealth to help the territory build its capacity and continue to find ways to increase the effectiveness of its international relationships. Just to go through some of the activities that the London office has undertaken in 2012, we participated in a number of diplomatic activities in accordance with our diplomatic responsibility as the territory's representative office in the United Kingdom and Europe. These engagements involve meetings with the UK government, the European Union, the Commonwealth, working very closely with various government departments such as the International Finance Centre, the Premier's office, of course, as a primary agency of the London office, and the Ministry of Natural Resources, really trying to address a growing number of environmental issues that are emerging in both the United Kingdom and in the UK. The London office also engaged the UK government on its future relations with the overseas territories in the lead up to the publication of the white paper. During the initial phases of the white paper's development, we had many meetings in London along with the other territories to provide input and to facilitate the input received from the various territories. Similarly, in the European Union, the draft Overseas Association decision, which comes into force in this year, we've played a very active role in ensuring that the BVI's input into that decision was received and was properly reflected in the current draft. We also participated in the last meeting as the primary agent of the government working with the EU. We coordinate the Premier's last visit to Greenland, where he met with his other 25 colleagues with the European Union, and of course the office played a very key role in that meeting. And we've also worked very closely with the Commonwealth and the Commonwealth Foundation, Commonwealth Fund for Technical Cooperation, to assist the territory with a number of initiatives in terms of capacity building in the territory this year. Some other initiatives the office undertook this year. In January 2012, we hosted the Deputy Premier. We supported the Deputy Premier as he represented the Premier at the first meeting of the EU with the overseas countries and territories in Brussels. And that meeting was focused, again, to a great extent on the Overseas Association decision that's going to come into force. And we also, as I mentioned before, worked with the Premier on the delegation meeting to Greenland earlier, which was just in December of this year. Over the course of the year, we have met on a functional basis with various departments of the European Union on trade and environment matters to ensure, again, that those two very critical areas of the new relationship with the European Union accurately reflect the position of the various departments of the territories. We've also continued to serve as co-chair of one of the key working groups with the European Union, and that is the one dealing with financial services, where a territory, in this case the BVI, co-chairs along with the European Commission to ensure that input into critical areas such as financial services is fully taken into consideration, and that input, of course, comes from the experts in the territory. There were also working group on the environment and working groups on trade. The other two key elements of the relationship. The office also played a key role, and you would be aware that the BVI was a charter member and a force in the establishment of the Caribbean Overseas Countries and Territories Council, where the Deputy Premier met in Curacao earlier this year, and the Premier also met during his Greenland visit in Copenhagen with his colleagues to try to finalize the arrangement for the Caribbean Overseas Countries and Territories Council to start to take on the responsibility of helping the Caribbean countries and territories to ensure that they have a coordinated approach to development in the region. The EU's primary focus for the Caribbean is to encourage and facilitate the region working closely together to ensure that it provides a focus and coherent position with regards to the development of the region in areas of trade and environment in particular. The office also played a role in assisting the territories to strengthen the mechanism to assist with the implementation of the white paper. There is an organization in the UK called the Overseas Countries and Territories Association, UKATA, which represents all of the territories with offices in London. During the JMC, the leaders met and felt it was important for the representatives in the United Kingdom to play a greater role in helping the territories to work and implement the measures of the white paper. And we've worked very closely with our other territories, British territories, to ensure that that mechanism is being put in place. And of course, we supported the Premier during his visit to the Joint Ministerial Council in December, which, as I mentioned before, further details on that will be shared by the Premier in terms of the future forward. We also work with a number of government departments very closely, and particularly the financial services sectors. During the year, we facilitated meetings of the IFC and the FSC in London with the industry. And these meetings are very important to ensure that the territory continues to build the partnership and strengthen the partnership with the industry, not just here in the BVI, but also in London, where many of the BVI companies also have overseas offices. We've done extensive work with the Ministry of Natural Resources, as the environment has become a very important agenda item for both the UK and the European Union, given the international obligations that both of those entities have on behalf of the British Virgin Islands and the other territories. We also worked, as I mentioned before, that the 2012 was a very busy year in the United Kingdom with the Diamond Jubilee and the Olympics. And we worked very closely with the BVI Olympic Committee to make sure that the BVI's presence in London was very fruitful. It was the first time that the BVI was able to have what's called an Olympic house where it was participating in the Olympics. Of course, having the London office in London made that possible, and we were very pleased with the manner in which we were able to help the Olympic Committee and the BVI delegation to have a successful presence in London this year. One initiative that we were very happy with is this year in 2012 we established a legal mentorship program. You would be aware that the government is very keen to help BVI Islanders to participate more fully in the financial services sector. And law is a very important part of that. And we have well over 35 law students studying in the UK. And we felt it was very important to try as best we could in the London office to help those students have a better chance of success in the legal industry. We were able to get the industry in the UK to cooperate, and there are about 12 UK lawyers who have agreed to mentor BVI law students, and there are about 24 law students participating in that program. And it's a fairly important relationship because it gives the students an opportunity to work with a practicing lawyer in the UK as they go through their education, and the lawyers are available to them to help them with any questions they have, including work with their studies, work with future opportunities within the industry, and just learning more about the legal profession so that when they finish their education, they're better prepared with a better understanding of the industry. So we're very pleased that that program has gotten off. And again, you would have noted in the press that the Premier kicked that program off in December last year, and we actually finished the mentoring arrangements in the fourth quarter of this year in 2012. We had a very successful art and culture show. This was the first year where we tried a new format, and that format involved providing local artists with UK-based expertise in the form of a curator who provided a workshop here in the BVI for the artists so that they can provide art to be in the show that is more saleable and more relevant to the UK market. And I'm pleased that we've sold 3 pieces of art this year, which is a very good start to the new program, and we're hoping that before The new collection comes up in July of 2013 that we would have sold the art that was sent there in 2012. And the objective is to make the show self-financing because art is a business, and we're trying to make sure that the local artists are working in concert with the Department of Culture, that the local artists are able to work at an international level to produce the art. This year marked the 10th anniversary of BVI London office, and we were very pleased to join the Premier's reception to recognize that event, and we produced a very nice booklet which looks at and captures the 10th anniversary of the BVI in London and the UK, and this booklet was distributed during the Premier's reception. We were also able to mint a very special medallion recognizing the 10th anniversary of BVI's presence in the UK. And this medallion was presented to those persons who were instrumental in the establishment and development of the BVI London office. And that was a very important event for the territory. One of the major areas that the office has been involved in is in helping the territory to build its capacity. And you would be aware that the Premier signed an agreement with Hertfordshire County in the United Kingdom in that regard, and we have been working with the various government departments on various initiatives to help the territory to engage in relationships with this particular county, which better reflects the size and scope of business in the territory, to build capacity, build professional relationships. The Minister of Education visited in early 2012 to Hertfordshire County, and you would have seen that in the press, and you would have also seen that later on in the year that officials from that county came to BVI to assist the ministry with building its capacity. We've also facilitated a visit by the Esther Risha Learning Center on special needs to help them establish relationships in Hertfordshire, as well as the land management division of the Ministry of Natural Resources. Those are just some of the activities we undertook in 2012. There are lots more, but those were some that we thought were particularly important to share with you. As 2013 comes on stream, we feel that from the London office perspective that much of the turmoil of 2012 will come into better focus in 2013 as the clear intentions and plans of the various international initiatives will come into focus, will be much more clearer. In the UK, of course, the White Paper policy will continue its implementation, and the change, the reform of the United Kingdom Overseas Territories Association will also provide a more efficient mechanism for helping the territory to manage the interface with the United Kingdom. The issue of corporate and personal taxation in the UK and its various strands will continue to impact financial services sector as the UK brings reform to financial services within its own borders and in its overall economy. The UK has assumed the presidency of the G8, which began this month, and during this period, we anticipate that much of its policies in areas such as financial services, its relationship with the European Union, all of that will come into greater focus. And of course, this will require that the London office, working with the Premier and the Premier's office and the other departments of government, work closer together to help the territory manage these developing situations. In the European Union, the Overseas Association decision will come into force this year. And again, the territory will be in a position to help to continue to influence developments in the European Union through its position as a member of the board of the Overseas Countries and Territories Association, which I serve as a vice president, and through its chairmanship of ACTA. In preparation for 2013, I will just share generally some of the general plans of the office. First and foremost, we've been asked, directed by the ministry to ensure that the Premier's office, the International Affairs Secretariat, and the London office coordinate much more closely to ensure that developments happening during the year are properly vetted and put forth to ensure that the government has current and relevant information at its disposal to make important decisions as events unfold. We will continue to facilitate capacity development through the Hertfordshire relationship, as well as through the general UK policy of creating greater linkages with the territory. This will be further discussed as the year goes on by the Premier. We will engage our parliamentary contact. You should be aware that the BVI has an all-party parliamentary group consisting of members of the various parties, Conservative, Labour, and Liberal Democrat, and we will continue to engage parliamentarians both in the House of Lords and in the House of Commons to ensure that BVI's position, particularly on the issues that are emerging, that the BVI position is known and understood and clear, and consideration is given to the BVI and other overseas territories as these laws and policies are developed. We will continue our engagement with the EU as the Overseas Association decision comes into force. We've also come to the realization that members of the European Parliament, those who are not in the British, French, Dutch, and Danish territories, but the emerging new European members also need to be engaged so that they can become more aware of overseas territories, as many of them don't have overseas territories. And they are also very concerned about the resources of the EU. So greater representation to members of the European Parliament will be made to ensure that the awareness of the territories is maintained across the entire Parliament. In an effort to support the regional integration aspect of the Overseas Association decision, we will work with the overseas arms of the region, including the OECS Embassy, the ACP, African Caribbean Pacific Secretariat, both of which are based in Brussels, to ensure that we coordinate those policies with the regional efforts that Ms. Christopher, on behalf of the IAS, engages in here in the BVI. We'll continue to work closely with the development of the Caribbean Overseas Countries and Territories Council. We will increase our efforts to seek additional sources of funding and support for the territory, both in the European Union and in the United Kingdom. As again, both of those relationships are now stressing a partnership, and in a partnership, you have more access to resources, and we have to continue to further engage those resources. We will continue to increase the information flow to the territory. We think it's very important that the territory develops a greater awareness of the impact of external activities on the territory. So we will continue to build those links, and we see the media as playing a very important role in that regard, because you are the conduit to information to the public, and we hope that this briefing and other activities from the Premier's office and other international departments of the government will help you to see the critical need for the media to continue to share the information regarding international developments. I'm aware that I've been speaking a bit more than I probably should be. I'll just mention one or two other initiatives. We will develop our network of contacts through our Friends of the BVI program to ensure that we utilize all of our relationships to help the territory as it tries to weather the current environment emerging. And of course, we will build on programs like a legal mentorship program, where we would expand that to include not just law students, but other areas of study. And that's pretty much some of the highlights of 2013. And again, we hope that you will see from what I've mentioned, that there is a new environment emerging internationally, and if you read the media, you will see that has already had significant impact on countries, and BVI is no exception, and we will continue in the London office working with the various government departments to do our part to ensure that the territory benefits from the best possible advice, expertise, and representation in the UK and Europe. Thank you very much, and I'll take any questions you have.
Good morning, Mr. Malone. Based on what you've just said, you spoke really a lot about the UK and the EU's environmental and trade concerns. One being the environmental being a concern and trade being something that they'd like to improve on with their OTs. You said that you've visited a number of the meetings and I guess being privy to some of what the policies are going to be entailing more. What are some of the direct and immediate concerns that these might have for the territory? These plans, that is.
Well, I think the overall objective is to help the territories to become more competitive from a trade standpoint. In the EU, for a very long time, for decades, the European Union has provided developmental assistance to territories. I think they'd like to see that change because their resources are a bit more constrained, and the Overseas Association decision is really geared to help the territories become more competitive so they can stand more on their own, work more effectively within their regions. And the program I mentioned before that Mrs. Smith-Maduro is coordinating, which is a small to medium enterprise development program, is designed to help to strengthen small business administration in the territories. And the other program is designed to create new economies in the territories. And certainly with the shifts and the turmoils in financial services, that's an area where the British territories in particular have a great interest. And certainly the government is quite keen to expand the economic base of the territory.
I'd like to kindly ask all members of the media to please identify yourself and the media house that you represent.
Sean Rose, JTV News. Mr. Malone, you mentioned that there are currently 35 law students pursuing studies in the UK.
Yes.
And they are being assisted under a legal mentorship program by 12. In fact, 24 of those are being assisted or participating in a legal mentorship program.
Right.
Could you update us as to how many BVI students are pursuing studies in the UK, generally speaking, and what are some of the other initiatives that the BVI in London office has initiated to assist those students?
Okay. Well, we try to encourage all of the students studying in the UK to register with the London office. We currently have probably about 60 students in our database. And I'm sure there are other students who are in the UK who choose because they're not necessarily on government scholarships, or they may choose not to register with the office. So I couldn't give you an exact number, but certainly in our contact database, we have approximately 60 students. And as I said, we would like to expand the mentorship, the legal mentorship program, to include other forms of mentorship, and particularly in the business areas. The focus being trying to assist them with opportunities in the financial services sector to complement what the government is doing with the financial services education in schools, and with the publishing of the financial services textbooks, and all of these other efforts to supplement those efforts by making sure that while the students are away in London, that they benefit not just from what's in the classroom, but all of the activities in support of them. Additionally, we have an annual workshop where we provide personal and professional development opportunities for students. In 2012, we hosted a workshop which was presented by a former member of House of Commons, who is now a consultant, to help the students better understand how their personal skills, their presentation, their Facebook life, all of these different aspects of their personal development contributes to their professional success. And this year we'll be following that on with another professional development workshop to broaden their experience outside of the classroom.
Morning, Mr. Malone. Zan Lewis, ZBVI Radio. Mr. Malone, you spoke about the shift in policy. and in terms of what happened in 2012 will be better felt in 2013. Are you ready for this? The BVI London office. Are you ready to adjust and to accept and to advise government on the change of policy, what is expected in, or the shift in policy for 2013? What has the office done to accommodate the shift in policy and what the BVI expects to face in 2013?
Well, we work very closely with the International Affairs Secretariat and the Premier's office. And through those departments, the Premier and the government is advised. And of course, any direct input we have goes to the government as well. I think you can see that there are a number of initiatives which I'm sure the Premier and government departments would have shared as we continue along. Certainly austerity is one of the areas. I certainly have had a smaller budget to work with, as I'm sure many of my colleagues in government have had smaller budgets to work with. And the various departments of government then have initiatives to address the various challenges. The Ministry of Natural Resources, we work with them to support in the environmental challenges emerging. Certainly the IFC and the FSC have to address the financial services challenges emerging, and we advise from the London office perspective on those. The Premier's office with regards to the UK relationship, we work very closely with the Premier and the Premier's office to support the relationship with the UK, where we meet regularly with the Foreign and Commonwealth Office and officials of that office. So those initiatives will be coming from those ministries and ministers as the year continues, and I'm sure a lot of those would have been shared with you during the year.
So you will agree that in 2013, you think the London office has more work to do in 2013. But I believe, and you made mention of smaller budgets. How are you going to do that? Are you satisfied with the budget you're currently receiving in light of the fact that you have more work to do in 2013 with a limited budget?
Well, I think all of us need to get more creative. We have to learn to do more with less. That's a reality of the world. And we're no different than the rest of the world. In the UK, budget have been slashed significantly more than they have been in a lot of other countries of the world. And they're doing more with less. And we all have to do more with less. So you can't spend time lamenting about what you don't have. You have to just look at what you have and make the best of it. Yeah.
Denise Clark from the Standpoint newspaper. Given the developments in the Cayman Islands and Turks and Caicos, from your discussions with the British government, are there any concerns about governance and accountability from the BVI?
Well, again, I think if you look at the white paper, and the UK has taken the time to outline its policy in the white paper, and it clearly indicates that greater governance, management of the affairs of the territories to ensure that the territories don't have incidents of governance as you had in some territories, that doesn't occur again. This is clearly a motivating factor. I think the current economic climate has heightened the need to ensure that the resources of the UK are not have to put to situations that can be avoided by greater scrutiny and management of situations in territories. And the territories, as I mentioned before, have a greater level of engagement to support that part of the partnership. And the London office is there to ensure that whatever assistance it can give in terms of facilitating capacity development, facilitating the communication between the UK government and the territory government and the departments to ensure that we continue to manage our affairs in an effective way so that we don't have those concerns.
Kathy Richards, Virgin Island News Online. Could you speak to the involvement of opposition leader T. O'Neill in the celebration of the London House this year?
Speak to the
the celebrations, his involvement in the celebrations this year.
Okay. Well, it's very well known that the Honorable Ralph T. O'Neill was the chief minister at the time of the opening of BVI House, and it was under his administration that the BVI House was open. And certainly his role in that was recognized. You'll see there's a very nice message here from Honorable Ralph T. O'Neill, speaking about his role in the establishment of BVI House, and certainly in being the premier, the chief minister at the time of the early life of BVI House. And again, the medallion I shared with you, a special one of those was presented to Mr. O'Neill and the premier in recognition of his efforts.
If you would have noted in our article carried today, he had expressed some disappointment in not being invited to a ceremony that was held in honor of this on December 3. Could you say why he was not invited?
Well, I think the event in London was done at the Premier's reception. There were no overseas invitations extended. The recognition was done here in the BVI, and there were approximately 15 persons in the territory who were recognized with the presentation of the medallion that are here in the BVI.
Mr. Malone, you mentioned repeatedly issues relating to environmental management and the BVI London office being involved in some of these decisions and discussions between the UK government and, of course, the BVI government. Mm-hmm. Could you give some specifics with due recognition to the need for specifics on some of these matters? Give some specifics in terms of the decisions that were received from the ideas that were put forward by the BVI London office, and what were some of these decisions on some of these ideas put forward?
Again, the London office works on behalf of the government departments on particular matters. In the case of environment, we work very closely with the Environment Ministry, Ministry of Natural Resources and Labor, and the Deputy Premier, who's the Minister of that subject. You would have been aware of a project that took place here in the BVI on environmental mainstreaming. And that is a project that was designed to help the territories better manage their environmental affairs. One of the key objectives is to ensure that environment and development work more complementary, in a very complementary manner. The BVI is an environmentally rich territory. We also have a thriving tourism sector. And to ensure that the environment and development work in concert is one of the primary focus of certainly in the UK. On the EU side, the EU is seeking to help the territories minimize the vulnerability environmentally of the economies, because many of the economies are based on one or two single industries, and those industries, such as tourism, hinges on the management of the environment, and in trying to help the territories strengthen their competitiveness and the economy, the focus is on helping to better manage and balance use of the environment for economic purposes.
I appreciate that, Mr. Malone, but I still haven't heard precisely what were some of the contributions from the BVI London office.
The London office, we have worked, for instance, earlier in 2012, we facilitated the visit of the Chief Conservation Officer to come to London and to the UK to to have meetings in the EU regarding the Overseas Association decision, which has a very important environmental component. We've worked with the minister. We accompanied the minister on his visit to India. My senior political officer, Benito Wheatley, accompanied the minister on his visit to India, where the COP11 conference took place. And there are a host of number of other events. And one of the things you realize is that because we are supporting ministries, a lot of the activities we undertake on behalf of those ministries are filtered out by those ministries. But I can give you a very long list of activities, including working with funding programs. We were working with the National Park Trust to help the territory gain access to UK lottery funds, which are raised from lottery sales in the UK and contributed towards agencies that are using heritage sites for tourism. And there are a number of other initiatives I can go through, but those initiatives are focused through the various government departments so that they can interface with the UK functional counterparts on the territories we have.
We have time for about 2 more questions over here and ZBVI.
Mr. Malone, you stated in your comments earlier that the UK is looking at reforming its financial service within its borders, and you alluded that this might have some impact on the territory. Are you aware that the UK has a FATCA-related initiative that it plans to inform to tax UK citizens who are living outside of the territory? And this can particularly be one of the things that would impact the territory. The London office, what advice have you given the Ministry of Finance in relations to this?
I am aware of the proposed UK FATCA, and when we were in London for the Premier's visit, we had meetings on that matter with the Treasury and other departments of the UK government, as well as among the territories. And the matter is still being discussed with the IOC and the Ministry of Finance, and I'm sure the Premier in due course will give a response on that as the professional and technical advice is provided to him on it. But it's just part of the changing global environment on financial services, which the territory, as a key player in the international financial services sector, will have to navigate through these various initiatives, not just from the UK, from the EU and the OECD. I mentioned before that the UK is the chair of the G8, and I'm sure a lot of initiatives affecting financial services will come out of that chairmanship. So we, again, work closely with the government departments who are responsible for the subject to facilitate the meetings. We are not the experts, but certainly on the political level, we make the representations to members of parliament, both in the EU and in the UK, on BVI's position, and we do that in consultation with the Ministry of Finance, International Finance Center, and other financial services organizations.
The BVI London office gets funding from government.
Yes.
How much money was allocated to the London office for the 2013, number one? It's observing the 10th anniversary, right?
That was 2012.
Right, 12. How do you said you have to function with less.
Yes.
How do you compare the funds that you receive now than before? And lastly, you spoke about the London office doing its work in a very effective way. Let me know the amount of money that you received this year compared to last year, and if you think the money that you have now, that you have been given now, will give you the opportunity to manage the office effectively.
I don't have the numbers in my head, Zan, but I think there was a general percentage cut in budgets across the line, and we were affected by that general cut. I don't have the exact numbers for you.
How much money you're given as director, Mrs. Malone? You must know.
I don't have the exact number for you, Zan.
How much?
It was a reduction, yes, but I don't have the number for 2013 for you. But I can tell you that one of the things we are doing is some internal reorganization. You're aware that we have a number of employees who are seconded to the London office, and right now we have 2 employees who are seconded to the London office. That helps us to operate without the direct spending from the office, because those officers are supported by the departments that they're seconded from. And we're also ensuring that our internal systems are much more efficient. One of the things I need to do as director is spend more time meeting with members of parliament and representing some of those critical issues on behalf of the territory. So we're improving our internal organization to be able to do that, making more with less.
Mr. Malone, do you remember how much money was given by government last year?
That number is in the budget, and it's a public document. It's not a secret. So you look at the last year's budget, you can see the number there for the BVI London office, and it was reduced by the same percentage, whatever that number is for 2013. It's not a secret. It's in the budget.
What is the size of the staff Mr. Malone?
Besides myself as director, I have a very able political officer, Mr. Benito Wheatley, who looks after the political EU affairs. I have my personal assistant, Mr. Van Flax from the Ministry of, from the Deputy Governor's Office, and I have a administrative officer and a security officer, as well as an accountant. So 6 staff and myself.
Forgive me, Mr. Malone, if my question seems a bit jumbled. I'm trying to roll 3 into 1.
Okay.
But do you foresee, as the director of the BVI London office, that you might be asked to solicit the help of the Parliamentary Association in relation to addressing the concerns the territory might have on this FATCA initiative and some white paper concerns, which I would have loved to ask you?
Well, I think that is for the Premier as Minister of Finance to decide how he wants to address the FATCA issue. And he's advised by financial services experts on that issue. The use of parliamentarians is a standard part of our operating procedure. We use parliamentarians to represent positions that we need to get to the UK officials or politicians. So that's standard. How they use and the timing and the manner in which they use, I take that direction from the Premier as the Minister of Finance.
The white paper concerns, because there were some expressed.
The white paper concerns, again, you know, our recommendation during the meeting was to have the representatives in the UK play a greater role in the communication, facilitating the greater engagement between the territory and the UK. And again, through that, the mechanism of the office, the Premier, after consulting with his office and the London office, will decide how that engagement should take place. We always give advice based on information we have. Because the London office is in London, you have more timely interactions with officials in the UK. And our role is to ensure that that information is relayed to the Premier's office so that those decisions can be made. Okay. All right. Well, thank you very much.